It's Anna with Virgo. Uh, and karmic justice is unfolding in ways you couldn't orchestrate yourself. Subscribe because what's happening deserves your witness. There's individual who's carried hostility toward you, and the consequences of her own choices, her own actions, her own energy are now circling back to her in forms that reveal the universe operates on principles of balance and return, where negativity directed outward eventually rebounds inward, where harm attempted on others becomes harm experienced by the one attempting it. This isn't you causing her suffering through revenge or retaliation. This isn't you needing to do anything to create her downfall. Natural law executing itself, life responding to her frequency with matching frequency, her own destructive patterns finally consuming her the way they were always going to consume her once they ran out of external targets. You're simply positioned to observe what happens when someone who operates from hatred discovers that hatred is poison the poisoner drinks first. And the witnessing aspect, that's significant because often people who harm us never face visible consequences. Often they seem to prosper while we suffer from their actions. Often justice feels absent, making us question whether being decent even matters. But this time you get to see it. This time the scales balance in ways you can observe. This time the person who wished you ill experiences her own ill in ways that prove to you viscerally that what goes around actually does come around. In the particular satisfaction of watching someone's negativity backfire on them is less than hash zero. 5 hashes greater than, there's validation that feels different from other kinds of validation, confirmation that the universe isn't random or unjust, evidence that maintaining your integrity while she attacked yours was correct choice, even when it felt foolish, proof that her apparent success while being a terrible person was temporary state, not permanent reality. Her punishment, which is really just natural consequence, teaches you that doing right eventually prevails over doing wrong. Let me illuminate what dynamics might be creating this karmic return. In the mechanics of how negativity returns to its source, several patterns consistently appear. People operating from hatred often create enemies through their behavior, building roster of people who eventually stop tolerating the abuse, burning bridges they later need to cross, alienating support systems they eventually require. The consequences aren't divine punishment. They're practical outcomes of treating people badly until no one wants to help you when help becomes necessary. Your antagonist's situation likely reflects exactly this self created isolation. She's been hostile not just to you, but to others in her sphere. She's been burning goodwill she didn't realize she would need. She's been damaging relationships that would have sustained her if she'd maintained them with basic decency. Mm. Now, circumstances have shifted, requiring support or assistance or grace from people she's alienated, and she's discovering that being awful to everyone means being alone when aloneness becomes dangerous. Notice if you're hearing through networks that she's facing difficulties where her previous bad behavior has eliminated her options, where people who could help her are choosing not to because of how she treated them, where doors are closed because she slammed them herself, where she's reaping exactly what she sowed in forms that teach lessons she refused to learn through gentler feedback. Some karmic returns are professional, her unethical behavior or toxic energy finally catching up in workplace, reputation she built through nastiness, preventing advancement or causing termination, people she undermined finally getting opportunity to not recommend her or not support her when their recommendation or support would matter. Professional karma is especially visible because work contexts eventually expose who people really are underneath their performance. You might be observing exactly this kind of career consequence, where her inability to collaborate, or her tendency to sabotage, or her habit of credit stealing has finally created professional consequences she can't escape, where the network she needed to succeed has blacklisted her based on accumulated experiences, where being skilled but terrible means being unemployable or stuck because nobody wants to work with her despite her capabilities. Others are relational, people leaving her because being around her toxicity becomes unbearable, partners discovering her patterns and choosing to exit, friends realizing the friendship is one-sided, draining dynamic they're done enabling. Relational consequences often arrive later, but cut deeper because they reveal that being alone is direct result of how she treated people when she had them. The punishment is living with herself and the wasteland she created around herself through her own behavior. This reflection invites you to consider what form of consequence would feel most like justice to you given what she did. Let me clarify what punishment to the end suggests about severity and duration. To the end implies consequences that don't resolve quickly, that aren't temporary setbacks she bounces back from, that represent sustained difficulty matching sustained negativity she expressed. This isn't minor inconvenience teaching small lesson. This is substantial hardship that fundamentally changes her circumstances or her understanding in ways that mark her permanently. In the severity of consequences matching severity of offense, there's proportionality at work. The universe isn't cruel, but it is just. The return matches the sending in intensity and duration. Someone who casually annoyed you experiences casual annoyance in return. Someone who deeply betrayed you experiences deep betrayal. Someone who persistently attacked you experiences persistent attacks from life itself. Her punishment, being described as extending to the end, suggests her offense against you was substantial enough to warrant proportional response. It's essential you examine your own feelings about witnessing her suffering. Some part of you likely feels satisfaction, which is natural human response to seeing justice enacted, but another part of you might feel discomfort with the satisfaction, might worry that enjoying her pain makes you like her, might question whether you should feel compassion instead. Both responses are valid. You can simultaneously recognize she's experiencing appropriate consequences while also having complex feelings about watching someone suffer, regardless of their deservingness. Some people who hated you and now face consequences will never connect their suffering to their behavior toward you. They'll blame external circumstances, they'll play victim, they'll rage at injustice without recognizing they created the injustice through their own actions. These people don't learn from their punishment, they just become bitter about it, which adds bitterness to their suffering without adding wisdom. You might be watching exactly this kind of unrepentant suffering where she faces consequences but takes no responsibility, where she experiences hardship but learns nothing, where punishment teaches her nothing except that life is unfair to her specifically. This kind of watching can feel unsatisfying because you want the suffering to create growth, but it just creates more victimhood. You want her to recognize what she did, but she only recognizes what's being done to her. Others eventually do connect their current suffering to their past behavior. They have a moment of recognition where they see that how they treated people has created how they're being treated now, where they understand that their isolation is self created, where they grasp that what they're experiencing is echo of what they put out. These awakenings sometimes lead to genuine transformation, sometimes just to performative apology, but at minimum, they involve admission of causation. This reflection invites you to consider: would you prefer she learns from her consequences, or would you prefer she simply suffers without learning? Let me address what you should do with awareness that her punishment is unfolding. Observe without gloating publicly. Your satisfaction can be private without needing to be advertised. Your sense of justice being served doesn't require you broadcasting her downfall or celebrating her pain where others can see. Private acknowledgement that karma exists preserves your dignity, while public celebration of someone's suffering damages your reputation and makes you look petty regardless of how justified the punishment might be. In the wisdom of watching karma work without interfering, you let natural consequences unfold without adding your own vengeance or commentary. You don't pile on when she's down. You don't spread word about her struggles. You don't help her punishment along through your own actions. The universe is handling it. Your involvement isn't required and would actually dilute the purity of natural justice, would make it about you being vindictive rather than about her experiencing consequences. It's critical you resist any temptation to help her, despite her previous hostility toward you. Some people facing consequences reach out to those they wronged, seeking assistance, banking on your goodness or your guilt to get help they don't deserve based on history. Unless you've genuinely forgiven her and want to help, your assistance would likely be weaponized against you, would be seen as weakness rather than strength, would be rewarded with more hostility once she's back on her feet. Some situations warrant offering grace despite past wrong. If her punishment seems disproportionate to her offense, if she's facing genuine life-threatening difficulty, if she's shown authentic accountability and change, then helping might serve your own values even if she doesn't deserve it based on history. But helping should come from your values, not from her manipulation, from your choice, not from her pressure. You're unlikely facing this scenario based on the severity implied. More likely, her consequences are appropriate and her suffering is direct result of her patterns, making your help unnecessary and potentially enabling. Let her sit with what she created. Let the lessons land without your interference. Let natural law do its work without you softening the impact she needs to experience to potentially change. Others facing someone's downfall feel unexpected compassion that surprises them. They thought they'd feel satisfaction, but instead feel sadness watching another human suffer, even when that human was awful to them. This compassion doesn't mean you should help, doesn't mean you forgive, doesn't mean you forget. It means you're more evolved than she is, means you can hold both. She deserves consequences, and watching anyone suffer is sad simultaneously. This reflection invites you to consider what response to her punishment would feel most aligned with who you want to be. Let me speak to what witnessing her consequences teaches you beyond just satisfaction. The broader lesson isn't just mean people eventually suffer, though that's certainly demonstrated. The deeper teaching is that maintaining your integrity through difficulty eventually proves itself worthwhile, that refusing to descend to her level preserved you from the fate she's now experiencing, that your choice to handle her hostility with dignity rather than matching hostility protected you from creating the same karmic debt she's now paying, in the validation of your choices through contrast with her consequences. You see clearly that taking high road wasn't weakness or naivety, it was strategic wisdom. You avoided creating the very problems she's now drowning in by refusing to fight fire with fire. Her punishment isn't just consequence for her, it's confirmation for you that doing right matters even when right seems to lose in short term. It's important you internalize this lesson for future encounters with difficult people. Her downfall teaches you that you don't need to personally punish those who wrong you, that life itself handles the balancing, that your energy is better spent moving forward than seeking revenge. This knowledge frees you from feeling responsible for making bad people face consequences, frees you to simply remove yourself and let natural law operate. Some people witnessing enemies' downfall become obsessed with watching every detail. They track the continuing saga. They check in regularly to see how much worse it's gotten. They derive ongoing satisfaction from each new difficulty. This becomes its own trap, keeping you energetically tied to someone you should be releasing, preventing you from fully moving forward because you're still looking backward at her suffering. You might be tempted toward exactly this kind of ongoing surveillance, wanting to know every detail of her punishment, following the story as it unfolds. Better to note that karma exists. Feel the satisfaction of knowing justice arrived. Then redirect your attention to your own life rather than staying invested in her downfall. Her consequences are hers to experience. Your freedom is yours to claim through letting go even of the satisfaction of watching. This reflection invites you to consider, after acknowledging that consequences have arrived, can you release your attention from her situation and refocus on your own growth? You will witness the punishment of the woman who hates you to the end. Her negativity is returning to her as consequences she cannot escape. Natural law is balancing accounts without requiring your involvement. Karmic justice is demonstrating itself in forms visible to you, confirming that hatred directed outward eventually destroys the one directing it. Her downfall isn't your doing, it's her own creation through accumulated choices and patterns finally consuming her. And your practice is observing without gloating, feeling satisfaction without becoming vindictive, learning the broader lessons about integrity and karma without staying fixated on her suffering. Let the consequences teach you that may